Working in a restaurant has taught me a lot. I've learned how to deal with customers who complain about everything, couples fighting at the table, children destroying the atmosphere as if they were on a battlefield. But nothing, absolutely nothing prepared me for this woman's level of sass. She arrived in noisy heels and a bag that seemed to be worth more than my month's salary. She sat down at the table as if she was about to be served by an award-winning chef from France, picked up the menu and flicked through it with the look of someone about to find a fault. I watched from afar because I already knew the type. A customer who spends more time looking around than choosing what to eat is always a pain. Unsurprisingly, in less than 5 minutes, she called the waiter with a snap of her fingers. She ordered a meal that involved practically everything on the menu: a seafood starter, a main course with a prime cut of meat, a fancy dessert, and a wine that wasn't exactly cheap. So far, so good. If she wanted to spend money on a meal, who am I to judge? The problem started when the food arrived. She ate. She ate a lot. She wasn't the kind of person who takes 2 bites and says, "It wasn't what I thought it would be." Number. She cleaned her plate as if she hadn't eaten for 3 days. She even dipped her bread in the meat sauce, a classic move of someone who is making the most of every penny. The dessert? It disappeared so quickly that I almost believed it had evaporated on the plate. But it was when the bill arrived that the show began. She took the receipt, looked at the numbers, took a deep breath as if she were facing a tragedy, and then raised her hand to call the waiter again. We already knew what was coming. I even felt a chill, because that moment, my friends, is the one that separates the normal customers from the ones who are about to make up some ridiculous excuse to leave without paying. And what this woman unleashed was worthy of an Academy Award for chicanery. I had an allergic reaction to the food. I can't pay for it. Then I thought, okay, I've heard bad excuses before, but this one tops them all. Now, the question was simple. How could someone who supposedly had an allergic reaction clean their plate and still order dessert? I already knew this was going to be a good story. The restaurant fell silent for a second. The customers at the surrounding tables pretended not to be paying attention, but I knew that everyone had heard. After all, it's not every day that someone eats an entire feast and only remembers that they're allergic when the bill arrives. The waiter, poor thing, tried to keep his composure. He took a deep breath and flashed that professional smile that only those who work in service can fake. An allergic reaction? I'm sorry, ma'am. Can we call an ambulance? She widened her eyes as if she hadn't expected that answer. The last thing she wanted was a paramedic arriving, because then the blow would fall faster than her dignity. No, there's no need. I'm better now. I just wanted to let you know that I was sick, and I don't think it's fair to pay for food that nearly killed me. The waiter's patience was already hanging by an invisible thread. What about me? I was enjoying watching the show. The woman crossed her arms and made a victim face, as if she was about to cry. But there was one small problem with this performance. She didn't look the least bit ill. No swollen face, no redness, no difficulty breathing. She looked healthy enough to devour another plate without hesitation. And then came the detail that destroyed the farce itself. She picked up the glass of wine and calmly took a sip. Now, tell me, what kind of person almost dies of allergies and then relaxes by drinking a wine that costs 200 Ries a bottle? The waiter looked at me, and I looked at him. It was a moment of silent connection, where we both understood that this woman was trying to make fools of us. But what she didn't know was that restaurants deal with scams like this all the time, and we always have a trick in store for those moments. The manager, who had already noticed the prank from afar, approached us with the look of someone about to play checkmate. Because if there's one thing that can put an end to any lame excuse, it's a restaurant with security cameras. And at that moment, this woman was about to learn that lesson the hard way. The manager approached with the calm of someone who has seen this kind of scam more times than he can count. He put his hands in his pockets, looked at the woman with a friendly smile, the kind of smile that precedes inevitable humiliation, and spoke with all the patience in the world. "That's a shame to hear, ma'am. But don't worry, we have security cameras and we can review the images to better understand what happened." I swear I saw her face change color. It was a spectacle. First, her eyes widened a little. Then her lips tightened and her breathing became shorter. In less than 5 seconds, the woman who had once been full of confidence now looked like she had been caught stealing from a child's piggy bank. She looked around, probably expecting someone to come to her defense. But by now everyone was pretending not to hear. Although I'm sure even the guy at the end table was already recording it in his mind to tell at home later. She sniffled, picked up her napkin, and pretended to wipe her mouth, trying to regain some dignity. I don't know if cameras can show an allergic reaction. It's an internal problem, you see. It doesn't show on the outside. That was the most pathetic attempt to save her own skin I've ever seen. Because now her logic was this. She had an invisible allergic reaction, which didn't stop her from eating absolutely everything, or drinking wine, or sitting quietly, but which was serious enough that she didn't have to pay the bill. The manager didn't even blink. I understand, ma'am, but as our restaurant has serious food safety protocols, whenever someone reports an allergic reaction, we have to call the medical service and report the case to health surveillance. That's standard procedure. It was then that she realized she had dug her own grave. If she carried on lying, they would have to call an ambulance and she would end up in hospital, trying to explain to a doctor why her allergy had miraculously disappeared as soon as she realized she would have to pay the bill. If she gave up the charade, she'd walk out of there with her reputation destroyed and still have to pay every penny of the dinner. She was trapped, and you could see it on her face that she knew it. What now? What would our master of deception do next? I couldn't wait to find out. The woman stood there, looking at the manager as if he had just destroyed all her plans for the future. The whole restaurant was silent, just waiting to see how she would try to get out of this. The only thing that could be heard was the clinking of cutlery from the few people who were still pretending to be having dinner, but it was obvious that no one wanted to miss a second of this gratuitous spectacle of shame. She cleared her throat, crossed her arms, and tried to pull herself together. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't ignore the fact that her face was glistening with sweat. Look, I don't want to cause anyone any trouble. I just thought it was fair not to pay for something that hurt me. Bad. She said this while half holding her glass of wine, after clearing each plate as if it were the last dinner of her life. The manager's patience was wearing thin, and you could see it in the way he smiled. A smile that said, "There's no point. You've already lost." "Of course, ma'am, but as I said, we have procedures to follow. If there's been a health problem caused by our food, it's our duty to investigate. That means calling an ambulance, making a formal report, and even sending samples of the dishes for analysis. It's a serious matter." She froze. She was so still that it looked as if someone had pressed a pause button on her. The woman probably thought that all she had to do was make some lame excuse and the restaurant would simply clear the bill and say goodnight. What she didn't expect was for the lie to go so far as to, ironically, put her in an even worse situation. Her gaze went from the manager to the waiter, from the waiter to the other customers. She couldn't just run away. She couldn't keep insisting on her allergy. She couldn't ask for a discount. And she definitely couldn't call the police, claiming that a restaurant wanted to make her pay for what she had eaten. The only way out? Pay. Slowly, reluctantly, with the same expression as a child forced to return the toy they stole from the store, she picked up her handbag and began to rummage inside. Her nails tapped nervously on her purse, as if each movement was psychological torture. I kept myself from laughing. She already knew there was no escape, but the real icing on the cake was yet to come. The woman opened her wallet as if she were about to donate an organ against her will. Each movement was slow, painful, as if the money inside would evaporate as soon as it touched the restaurant bill. She pulled out her credit card with the delicacy of someone holding a rare relic and cast a final glance at the manager, perhaps hoping for one last miracle, but all she got was an impassive smile and the payment machine sliding in front of her. The silence in the restaurant was almost deafening. People pretended not to be looking, but you could feel the tension in the air. No one wanted to miss this moment. The woman slid her card into the machine, typed in the password angrily, and when the screen showed "payment approved," she let out a long sigh, as if she had just lost a life-or-death battle. That was absurd. I'm never coming back here again. Ah, yes, the classic customer scam, pretending to be the victim of an injustice and threatening never to set foot in the establishment again. The manager, without losing his good humor, just smiled and said, "We'll miss you." She huffed, grabbed her handbag so hard that she almost knocked over her chair, and walked out of the restaurant with her heels clacking on the floor, as if she were parading down the catwalk of humiliation. As soon as the door closed behind her, the restaurant erupted in whispers and giggles. One table even clapped quietly, because, let's be honest, everyone loves to see a scammer unmasked. The waiter passed me, shaking his head and holding back his laughter. You know what's worse. If she'd just said she didn't have any money, we might have split the bill for her. But no, I had to invent a whole show. And he was right. What killed this woman wasn't the bill. It was her own pride. If she had said anything normal, she would have avoided public shame. But no, She had to deliver a blow that collapsed like a house of cards in the wind. Well, I got a free show, an excellent reason to laugh for the rest of the week, and the certainty that there are people who simply weren't born to be criminals. Regardless of the situation, have you ever come across someone like that? The kind of person who tries to pull off a scam, but only ends up being embarrassed? Let me know in the comments. And if you like this story, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss anything new. Want more crap like this? Click on the card and come marathon. See you in the next video.